Hi, thank you for coming out. When I was asked to speak at this thing, I was like, well, what was I talking about? It was kind of an audacious title, but I kind of wanted to tie in a lot of thoughts I've been having about casual games, but my experience with mobile over the last 6 or 7 years at PopCap, if you can believe that. So this is a 1,000 foot, 10,000 foot view, right? 10,000 feet, 1 million feet. And I have a new company, Foxface Rabbitfish LLC, no longer with PopCap Games, and back into the freelance fray. So with that, let's define casual game, because that's kind of a vague term these days. And when I was first doing casual games, there were PC downloads, and now it's a lot of mobile. And but it goes beyond that, and that's one thing I want to emphasize here. So I'm going to define casual game as games you take with you. Because on mobile these days, there are action games, there are dungeon crawlers, there's all kinds of games that kind of defy the genre of casual. So I wanted to bring it out to games you take with you, interactive entertainment that's always there and always on. Because that's what's happening. We have our phones with us, but think of it this way: this device is kind of just the beginning of our digital immersion that is going to be ubiquitous. So there are two main takeaways that I'm going to present today. One is pragmatic, and that this technology and the games you take with us will be all pervasive yet invisible. I'll get into why. So it seems like a paradox there, but these two things, it's like water, fish that swim in water. Water is pervasive yet invisible. And the other is inspirational. Because the future is what you make it here and now. It's not this inevitable tidal wave that kind of rolls over you. And that's the other point. So moving forward. So in the era of progress, when I left Microsoft Publishing, I had a team of like 16 audio people publishing AAA console games for the Xbox 360. And I jumped to a then independent company called PopCap Games. And I got two main reactions to that. The main reaction was, what the are you doing? You have this job that's, way up there, and you're going to this little company. And then the other reaction would be, oh, that's awesome. I'm so glad you're doing that. There were two reasons, the main reasons that I did make that particular career leap. And one of them, they apply to each of my takeaways. So in the part one of the takeaway, the reasoning was I saw mobile coming and then realized how important it was going to be to not just the millions of people that have consoles, but to the hundreds of millions and now billions of people that have these devices called telephones, mobile phones. And I also saw where that might lead in terms of the ubiquity of games always being present, no matter where you are. So here we are, early portable, analog games. We have cards, we have dice, we have the Rubik's Cube, right? So this idea has always been with us. Handheld games. I'm just going to blow through this. My first one was that little football game with the little dots going across in the 70s. It was mind-blowing. And then mobile. And over my span at PopCap, mobile went from an isolated experience to a connected experience. And that, I think, even though the devices were growing and getting stronger, the most important development over that time period was the notion of being connected not only to other people, but to a cloud and data, and having these experiences that, rather than being more akin to scoring a one-time experience, is more like creating audio and sound for a TV series, because you're always kind of keeping it up to date. And then now where we're headed is into wearables, AR, MR, VR, and how that happens. We see mixed reality coming, like this thing over here, and many of us may have tried Google, the cardboard and those kinds of things. And you go, well, that's pretty fun, but you can kind of see where this is going, where we have something that is wearable yet more invisible even on us, and our technology will be a part of us, quite literally. So the platform is becoming transparent and invisible. Right now we talk about what's the phone capable of, what's this and that, but as things move to the cloud and technology is transferable among devices more freely, which is a trend I'm seeing, that will be something we have to consider, is where will these games be played? Platform-to-platform experiences are something that I've seen Microsoft try to do for more than a decade and a half. And you go, oh, well, this didn't work at that point in time. But as you notice, every push towards this goal of, fluid content across platforms, even within, and by across platforms, I don't mean necessarily between Sony and Xbox as much as, console to PC to mobile to, connected devices to your watch and all those things and how they're interacting. And that's how it becomes sort of invisible, because it's not the phone or the console that's important, it's the content that's making its way across those things. Cloud is where the home is. That's where it all kind of convenes. That's where it's all going to be kept. And authoring, the same, similarly, at the very least, across platforms. Again, one of the things I saw when starting at PopCap is the potential for doing console-style authoring on a phone. And I feel like that's one of the things we did as a PopCap team bring to the mobile space. Is, I don't know if we were the first, but one of the first to use Wise and Mobiletize, certainly at any scale. We were the first to do that. And people were like, oh, that's crazy. Isn't that overkill? Isn't Wise huge on a phone? It's like, no, the footprint is tiny. It's what you put into it. It's the content. So it's all about scale. So my ideas about how to work with audio and games are at a high level the same across console, mobile, etc. I don't reconsider, oh, this is just a mobile game. I hate hearing that. Oh, you're just a mobile game. No, it's a mobile experience that is can be very intimate when you're wearing headphones. So the interface. This is another thing that is changing. And again, we've been doing touch now for the last almost 10 years, I think. And touch games have been going along. But so we kind of are thinking of, well, I'm doing a casual game. It's bound to be a touch mobile game. But where is that? How are players going to interact with experiences now? And we see Pokemon Go as a prime example of how that can take off with mixed reality. And I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. So it won't just be this in the bank line. Right? There's going to be other aspects. Oh, I see something over there. Nobody else does. Right? How do I put audio over there? Okay? We have to consider that even in casual games, maybe especially. But another thing I've been thinking a lot about as I rebuild my home studio is how will you, the audio creator, interact with the tools that you create these experiences with? We've been using mice and keyboards for more than 2 decades. It's time to move on, I think. It's kind of, that is the bottleneck in our production process, mice and keyboards. Keyboard's not so bad. I've been experimenting and putting together a touch-based studio with the Surface Studio, the one that looks like a big drafting table. And already I'm just scratching that surface and the light bulbs are going off and I'm like, oh, this is remarkable. I'm using Reaper with a pen and my touch, and the flow is not only more intuitive. I see something, I touch it, right? Not just where's the mouse, but it's also more enjoyable. I'm reaching, and it feels more like I have this physical flow going. I'm not locked in this position. So, people are starting to jump right to AR with this kind of idea of like grabbing stuff in space. But I think touch, that tactile sense, will be really important. And there's various touch. People have been working with iPads a lot, but this is the first full-blown PC experience I've had, and it was definitely an eye-opener. So the listening experience, how will this change? How will players audibly experience your games? Of course, in mobile, we always struggle with, oh, nobody listens to mobile. Well, I've written an entire blog and have ranted about the importance of audio on mobile. I'm not going to rehash that here. But whether, if a player has headphones in, that is about as intimate as an experience as you can get. So that's where I generally mix mobile games, is with earbuds, good earbuds, and nice headphones. But that's my primary mixing, and then I go to the little speaker to make sure it translates. But moving ahead, as mixed reality becomes a part of this, we're going to have 360 immersed audio experiences over headphones. It's already a thing. We're still on kind of version 1 point whatever, but you can be assured it's going to get better and better and better, and that people, as they have their wearable with them, they're seeing their mail over here, and they're looking at their calendar over here, and they're, oh, I'm going to play this game, and they're watching, their favorite Netflix thing in surround with their headphones on the bus, and then go, oh, I'm going to play your little mobile game. It better compete with that Netflix thing they've just watched, that jam that they've just been watching. So think of it as a full immersion experience. It's not a distant thing. We have to get beyond mobile as a tiny sound. So here's part 2. And this is the inspirational part, but it's more than fluff. I think this is actually the most important part, because the second thing that I think people were like, why are you going to this little company called PopCap? It's just a casual game studio. And right there, I think they minimized their thought process as to what can be in these situations. So when I approach any gig, I start with imagine the possibilities, not the expectations. Because the general expectations is mobile audio sucks. Right? And the only way to get beyond that's like, well, let's imagine something different. Let's imagine something other than that. And that's true of PC games, if anything. If you're even a console game, like, what's the expectation of a first-person shooter? It's this. There's a box around the expectation of what the score should sound like. How many ubiquitous first-person scores are there out there? There's tons. How can we, imagine something different? Maybe we use less sound effects, right? Maybe it's not so dense. So any gig you approach, treat it that way. And the other side of that is it also, as a professional, if you're getting into the industry and you have this first gig and you go, oh, it's just a little, it's an indie studio, it's 2 people. I just need the money, I want to get my experience, and then I'm going to look to this other gig where I'm really going to do my best work. I'm just going to get through this. That's the wrong approach. Even if the game is turning out like, well, it doesn't look like it's going to be that great, still treat it like with some imagination, so that experience, not only an experience, those demos that come out of that, bring you your next work. The current work always brings the following work. So be inspired by what you're working on now. I once heard Damien here in the audience say, what's your best portable recording device? I was like, I don't know. He said, the one you have, the one that's with you. Right? If you hear something awesome and all you have is your iPhone, get it with your iPhone. Because if you don't have your sound devices with you, better to get it. So treat those little games with serious respect, and that'll get you your next gig. So I also always keep the long view in mind. It's not just daydreams, because you have an idea of how something should be. It certainly isn't going to happen, might not happen on this gig you're really jamming on, but you do little steps towards it. Whether it's a technique, I want to try a seamless transition between this. I won't be able to do this full-blown thing, but I could try just this one thing, and then those techniques get applied. So it takes patience, resilience, and grit. And those 3 elements are probably more important. They're right up there. You have to have ability, right, and potential. But without those 3 things, you're toast. So when you're working on that game, that little game, and you're in the weeds, in the minutia, keep that arc of progress in mind, where you're headed. Like when you're trying to hit a moving target, you don't aim at the target, you aim where it's going. And you keep your eyes there while you're working on this. And that helps you do two things. It helps you, be moving towards that future, but it also helps you do something more imaginative with what you're actually working on in the moment. So you apply that vision to the here and now. That's exactly what I was just saying. So, for me, inspiration comes before the pragmatism. We get so caught up in, how do I be a good business person in this industry? How do I organize this stuff? What's my best workflow? Blah, 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 blah. How can you answer any of those questions if you don't have a vision, if you don't have an imagination? It starts there because these little things, these details are very important, but they all point to this thing you're trying to bring out to the world in whatever you're creating. So my staple phrase over the last many, many years, let the creative lead the technical. Because people, what's the best tool? Should it have this feature or that feature? You can't answer those questions, however good the feature is, without knowing what your creative goal is. What do you want to accomplish creatively? And you talk about that in very abstract terms, And then you can get specific as you go down. And the best business decision possible. These things are not separate. The more imagination and inspiration you bring to your own work, that's the best business decision you can make. Follow your bliss, as Joseph Campbell would say. The other thing about following your bliss is that you're doing your audio and your music for the right reasons, and that brings, you get excited about it. Gee, excitement brings energy, and energy brings ideas, and then good ideas come out that are original, and wow, people like those original ideas because they're also creative people. And then, hey, would you like to work on my project? So in other words, going out on a limb creatively has been the best business decisions I've ever made. It seems like the more I go out on a limb creatively, the better response I get. So with that, I will close out and take any questions or ideas.
Having done both the freelance and in-house, I'm just wondering how that kind of factors into this in terms of convincing, to do something more creative. Is it easier when you're in-house?
So the question is in-house, out-house, right? And we always joke about that. And is it easier to get creative stuff accomplished, convincing teams of your ideas and your goals? And I've had some success in each. There are advantages to each. As an independent, I can seek out creative individuals and teams that I'd like to collaborate with more freely. That's an advantage. But usually the keys to the car and the car itself are in the building. And so I've made conscious decisions to work in-house at times in order to get the keys to the car. Now, by that I mean, the source protection's there, the tools are there a lot of times if they were proprietary, or they don't trust the builds going out of the building, all that stuff. Now, that was way worse in the early 2000s. How do you do that? That's one reason I went back in-house after being freelance during that early era of the 2000s. These days, it's an open book. We've got great third-party tools across the board, both the game engines as well as the audio engines. So we can do so much, both pre-production and production and post-production and demo work that was unfathomable before. So I think that line between what's possible in and out, at least from a technical perspective, is going away, and the only element left are for companies to trust that can happen effectively. Of course, the person-to-person touch is the other element that's really, really challenging as a freelancer, and you have to make extra efforts to do that. Now you'll find certain companies are they're some are remote anyway, or they have a culture that's accepting of that, and they do a lot of Skype meetings anyway, and then you get personal time and travel to have actual human-to-human contact as well. So I think it's down to a cultural acceptance more than a technical limitation at this point. So I think those walls they're not totally down, but they're coming down. Yeah.
So in your vision of the future, as we start to eliminate, as we start to move towards touch, let's say on screens, and devices as part of our gestural workflow, and then maybe, with VR and just the kind of wild movements that are moving, where does audio go with that? Is our 360 headphones the end of that, or where could we go with audio as reproduction, kind of in a post-headphone world, if you imagine that?
Well, I will be setting up an Atmos speaker set in my new studio. Okay, so let me repeat the question. Just as an extension of touch, AR seem like the obvious things for new interface connectivity. How does audio feed into that? In terms of controlling audio, voice command, voice gestural thing, there's a tool out that I was playing with, and again, it seems like early days, but you speak a gesture into a microphone and the sound effects follow that gesture algorithmically. So we're seeing algorithm, because I start almost all my sound effects and sometimes in music as well, vocally. It's like, shebang! No, it needs a swing, right? And if that stuff was more immediately transferable, I don't have to go, what is swing? Let's see. And let me look it up on my database. Swing. No, it got swing. So I think more immediate feedback that voice could help immensely, just to go straight to, I'm going to sing a line, it MIDI translates, and now I have a string line playing that. That'd be great. It would hopefully develop our inner ears a little better, right? So yeah, I would love that. And in terms of listening environment, it depends if you have head tracking needs or not. If you don't have head tracking needs, I'm totally happy with a nice surround up and down speaker array that I can sit in the middle of and be part of. And maybe there's, in that situation, a way we can do the tracking and still have speakers. Because living with headphones 24/7 doesn't sound like fun. But anyway, I think all of that will be a part of it. Cool. Thanks. Brian.
People tend to lump VR, AR, MR into the VR, AR, MR bucket.
Yes.
Audio-wise, how do you see them being separate things?
Ooh, yes. So Brian's question, the MR, VR, AR acronym hell, is how are those different in terms of audio experience? And I think there's some differences probably in both experience and also how you create for it. In terms of experiencing, if you're making a mixed reality experience, you're part of an existing audio landscape. And you're part of an existing audio landscape that you're unaware of, you don't know, unless, actually it would be pretty cool if the microphone was feeding in. So there's things like that. So the main difference, I would say, is in VR, you are the world, right? You are everything. You are 100%, and you own every detail of the sonic soundscape. There it is. In AR/MR, you are an important part of it, especially if you're probably in casual. It might be, oh, can I have this game on over here while I'm having my coffee? So it can't be, they don't want it to be totally immersive. So subtlety comes into play, and maybe, panning and bringing sounds in and out in a more delicate manner. And again, having a microphone that's aware of, oh, there's a lot of dish clanking going on here. Maybe I won't play those high-pitched sounds, I'll play it down here. So I think awareness of the outside, bringing the awareness, aural awareness into the application will be really important in that situation. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.